6 individuals who were injured from bumps and bruises and lacerations to trauma caused by just the impact or the torquing of the 2 vehicles. I think what was shared yesterday with your viewers is that the Pasadena Police Department would reach out to the NTSB. We have done that. They're here this morning. They've started their preliminary investigation. We did have a chance to talk with the investigator, and we had a good sense of what she plans to do. So she's looking at the field debris that is here at the heliport. She's looked at the vehicles themselves, making an assessment of that information also. That subsequently will lead to a preliminary report, and then ultimately, as more information becomes available, we'll generate more comprehensive reports for us to look at.
So were the choppers landing or were they taking off?
Well, one was on the ground, under power, and the other was coming in for a landing maneuver.
Okay. So one was landing, one was about to take off.
Well,
what do you mean by under power?
Under power, the term that I'm familiar with, and I'm not an expert in avionics or in helicopter flight, but the vehicle, the helicopter that was on the ground, was actually spinning up, so bringing the aircraft under power for ultimately takeoff.
So was there a communication issue? I know it's so early in the investigation, but the big question is, how can this happen?
Right. Well, I think the reality is that the NTSB investigation will tell us that. And rather than speculate, I think really we do need a little bit of patience to see ultimately what comes out of this. Very comprehensive as she laid out the interview, or she laid out the protocols and the procedures. And I'm very comfortable with what our next steps are going to be. And I think it's important for your viewing audience and for our Altadena neighbors and the Pasadena community, for them to know that we have a full cooperation with the NTSB. We're making all the records available to them at their request. This is their investigation. Ultimately, those kinds of questions I think will be answered by the NTSB.
And just to clarify, the 6 people that were injured, 5 were police officers, 1 was a civilian that was on board.
That's correct.
And 1 of the police officers was outside of the helicopters?
That's correct.
Is there surveillance video that's going to help with this investigation?
There is surveillance video, and that will be all submitted to NTSB, and they can evaluate it for what it means.
Possible disciplinary action?
That I don't know. I think that's a little bit premature. I think my only remark in that area is that our officers are responsible for, of course, their own behavior. And if I may, the Pasadena Police Department has operated, its air operations section for over 42 years. We have a history of safety. We have a history of prudence. Our officers are well trained. They're professionals. They make great decisions, and sometimes these things kinds occur. Ultimately, if there are officers that are culpable, or there is a series of events that indicate that something needs to be changed, then the Pasadena Police Department will move in that direction.
And you guys have more than 2 choppers, right? So your service has not been disabled. You guys are flying in and out of another
What does this mean for the people who live
Well,
there?
so that's a great question, because I think the fact of the matter is that we have 5 or 6 helicopters. I say 5 or 6 because we actually fly a bird for the LA Impact, which is a regional narcotics task force team. But with respect to actual birds in Pasadena, we have 5 of those. Now, 2 obviously, you can see for yourself, have been extraordinarily damaged. So what my flight team is doing now is they're assessing our capacity. They're looking at flight schedules. And when we put a bird in the air, we have a pilot, of course, and then we have a tactical flight officer. And that person's job is to look around and call in ground units and coordinate those kinds of things that helicopter enforcement is responsible for. But we'll know more later on this week. There is a kind of a decompression period. We're going through that now. The good news is our flight crews that were involved yesterday, they're in good health. Of course, they're a little shaken, as any of us would be in a traumatic event like this, but there were no outwardly extraordinary injuries. So I think that those are the kinds of things we're looking at as well.
But in the meantime, you guys can fly in and out of another helicopter.
Yeah, we are not restricted, not by the NTSB or by the FAA at this point.
So the helipad is
Closed now, right?
It's closed right now because you can see the debris on the field, and
So how
so,
long you don't-
well, that depends on her investigation.
Chief, what's the plans for later in the day? Are they going to remove the debris and take it somewhere else? Have they told you?
That's a great question. That option is actually up to the Pasadena Police Department. What I've elected to do is actually we're going to store the birds here. So for your viewers, over my left shoulder is the north hangar, and we're going to move equipment out of that north hangar into the main hangar here, and then those aircrafts will be stored here because I think that's also facilitates access for the NTSB.
Are these helicopters repairable?
I'm not an expert, but I would say that the damage was extensive.
Do you know how extensive early damage estimates? Are we in the millions?
That I don't know. That I don't know.
Chief, we have some discrepancy on exactly how many were on board each helicopter and who was injured on the ground. Could you maybe take us through that?
Sure, as much as I can. In one helicopter, we had the pilot, the tactical flight officer, and a civilian observer. In the other helicopter, we had a pilot, a tactical flight officer, and then we had an officer who was standing on the port side of the aircraft, on the left side of the aircraft, talking to the tactical flight officer when the incident occurred.
Now you say pilot and tactical flight officer; those are both considered police officers.
Yeah, they're all
Right.
sworn employees.
So basically, 5 police officers and
Correct.
1 civilian.
Correct.
I just want to point out then that I was right.
So funny.
That was a discrepancy.
So
But
funny.
can you stress really what this means for the people who depend on these helicopters?
Well, I think what it means, of course, we have great relationships with the Los Angeles County Sheriffs. The Los Angeles Police Department has been extraordinary. They've offered their services. I spoke with Chief Moore last night. Early on in the incident, one of the things that Mike offered right up was any service that the Los Angeles Police Department could help. Glendale Police Department has done the same thing. Again, extraordinary relationships with these community partners, law enforcement partners. We've been operating for 42 years, and we've developed an extraordinary reputation, and we have great relationships with our airborne law enforcement partners. And so coverage is going to be taken care of. I'm not overly concerned about that. What I'm concerned about right now is my people getting healthy. I'm concerned about the NTSB conducting a thorough investigation so that I can answer questions for you later on. And then I'm interested in getting our crew, our team, our Air Bureau back online as quickly, as safely, and as prudently as possible.
Okay, and the civilian, is that, who's the civilian? Why is the civilian on the chopper?
Civilian was part of the operations for traffic management associated to major events here in Pasadena.
Will the NTSB let you, they give you a timetable as to when they might have their investigation done?
Not exactly. I think we'll probably know more about that at the end of the day. I think right now she's here doing this preliminary investigation, and we'll have a greater sense of that when she's done today.
Chief, 42 years, has anything like this ever happened with your choppers? I mean, I know there's...
Not to my knowledge. Yeah, we are a safe air operations. We have standard operating procedures. We have policies and protocols that are in place. This is the first time that this kind of catastrophic incident has happened. And the good thing is, our people are alive.
How essential is the air operations for a police department?
Well, any air operation, but particularly here in Pasadena, it's exceptional. My officers in the Aero Bureau, if they're in the air and they receive an emergency call, they're over within 60 seconds. That means that they're managing the scene within 60 seconds of receiving that call. They can coordinate ground units, they can ask for extra resources. Oftentimes that they're at the tip of the spear. They're the ones that are coordinating the arrest. So you can see for yourselves, and your viewers can start to understand how impactful that tool is. Let me say though that we have very talented police officers in Pasadena, and their capacity to do great jobs and respond quickly. Our response times are very, very good, and our officers are very, very dedicated. So we have adequate resources to cover that ground issue and that ground response. Our Pasadena residents are not going to see a diminish or an erosion of service based on 911 calls or non-emergency calls. You call the Pasadena Police Department, we will be there.
Are you surprised that your officers were, after looking at all the damage,
questions open.
that your officers were able
What you got now?
I think the word is I'm thankful. I'm deeply thankful that our officers are okay. I spent time with my deputy chief, Bill Qualls, over at 2 local area hospitals last night until all of our people were home. Frankly, that's how we do it in St. Police Department.
And the point of obviously all of this is to make sure it doesn't happen again.
Well, there are some lessons learned, right? And so we're going to look at this. I think that's the value of the NTSB. I think that's the value of having the FAA come in and look at our procedures and look at the way we do things. And if we've not seen something, identify what that something is, and then we can put that corrective action in place.
Right, because at the end of the day, there's someone responsible for that.
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.